Yo, real talk. America is the richest, most powerful country that has ever existed on this planet. But here's the wild part nobody talks about. It almost never happened. For over 100 years after America was discovered, most of Europe literally didn't care. Like, they found an entire continent and just went, pass. Here's how it all kicked off. Back in 1492, Christopher Columbus wasn't even trying to find America. Dude was just trying to find a shortcut to Asia, sailing west to get east. Bold move. And guess what? He crashed into the Caribbean islands instead. He had no idea he stumbled onto a brand new continent. He thought he was near India, so he called the people there Indians, a name that stuck for hundreds of years. Columbus grabbed some gold, brought it back to the king and queen of Spain, and basically said, I found Asia. They were like, cool, where are the spices? And he was like, more gold though. Spain said, run it back, go get more. Now here's something that'll blow your mind. Spain and Portugal literally took a map, drew a line down the middle of the world, and said, this half's mine, that half's yours. Portugal went to Asia, Spain got the Americas, and Spain went straight to South and Central America, where there was gold, silver, and people to conquer. North America? Totally ignored. Useless, they said. England did send an explorer to North America early on, but then ghosted the whole continent for almost 100 years. Crazy, right? An entire continent just sitting there, waiting. So what finally made England show up? And what happened to that first colony that just vanished without a trace? Eyes, stay locked in, because things are about to get real interesting. Alright, so England finally decided to stop sleeping on North America. And their first real attempt? A total disaster. In 1585, England set up a colony in Roanoke, North Carolina. But then they got caught up in a war with Spain and just forgot about it. When they came back, every single person was gone. No bodies, no notes, nothing. Just vanished. To this day, nobody knows what happened. Creepy, right? But England didn't give up. They tried again at Jamestown, Virginia in 1607, and this time it stuck. Then came the Pilgrims landing at Plymouth, a bunch of super strict Christians who literally banned Christmas. Yeah, no gifts, no decorations, no fun. Hard pass. But people kept pouring into America. Before long, the whole East Coast was packed with British colonies. Meanwhile, the French were quietly claiming everything in the middle of the continent, like the whole interior of North America. They said, yeah, that's ours. That tension finally exploded into the French and Indian War in 1754. France had about 60,000 settlers and teamed up with Native American tribes. Britain had over 1 million colonists and also had tribal allies. Spoiler alert, Britain won. Big time. France lost Canada and half of Louisiana. But here's where Britain fumbled the bag. They'd spent a ton of money on that war and decided the colonies should pay for it. New taxes. Lots of them. The colonists were heated. You can't tax us. We don't even get a vote. That argument turned into protests. Protests turned into fights. And fights turned into a full-blown revolution. On July 4th, 1776, America declared independence. But winning the war took 5 more years. And after that, the new government was a complete mess. 13 colonies acting like 13 separate countries. It was falling apart fast. So the founding fathers scrapped the whole thing and wrote a brand new constitution. In 1789, George Washington became the first president of the United States. America was officially open for business, but it was still tiny, and it had some very ambitious neighbors. How does a small nation on the East Coast end up stretching all the way to the Pacific? Stick around, because the next chapter is all about the glow up. Okay, so picture this. America is brand new, still figuring itself out, and all the land west of the Mississippi River, it belongs to Spain. The young United States is basically just chilling on the East Coast like a kid who just moved into a new neighborhood with no backyard. But then, enter Napoleon Bonaparte. This dude was out here trying to conquer all of Europe, and he also had big dreams for America. He cut a sneaky deal with Spain to get Louisiana back under French control, and that made America very, very nervous. See, Americans needed the Mississippi River to ship their goods. It was like their main highway for trade. If Napoleon controlled it, that's a huge problem. So America went to France and said, hey, can we just buy New Orleans? Napoleon thought about it for like 2 seconds and said, you know what? Take all of it. Bro basically sold the entire Louisiana territory, over 800,000 square miles, for just $15 million. That's less than 3 cents per acre. Overnight, America doubled in size. Historians call it the greatest real estate deal in history. And honestly, that's not even cap. But the land wasn't the only thing growing. America's population was going absolutely crazy, nearly doubling every 20 years. The average family had 7 kids. 7. So people started moving west, claiming land left and right. Did anyone already live on that land? Yeah, Native Americans. But settlers basically acted like it didn't count. Dark chapter. Real dark. In 1819, America bought Florida from Spain. Spain was losing its grip on everything. And just 2 years later, Mexico broke free from Spain and became its own country. America had a brand new neighbor to the south. Now here's where it gets spicy. Mexico actually invited Americans to come settle in Texas because the land was hard to control. Bad idea. Those American settlers kept coming and coming until they outnumbered the Mexicans. Then in 1836, the Texans said peace out and created their own independent republic. Texas knocked on America's door and said, "Can we join?" But Congress said no at first because Texas was a slave state, and that was a whole political mess nobody wanted to touch. That was until a new president said, "Actually, yeah, come on in." And that decision, it started a war. One that would reshape the entire map of North America. Alright, so Texas just joined the United States in 1845. But the second Texas walked through the door, America and Mexico started beefing over where exactly the border was. That argument got hot real fast, and before you know it, both sides were throwing hands. The Mexican-American War kicked off in 1846, and honestly, Mexico didn't stand a chance. The U.S. Army rolled through, and by the time it was all said and done, America made Mexico sign over a massive chunk of land: California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, basically the entire American Southwest. And on top of that, the U.S. paid Mexico $15 million for it. Like, we took your land and gave you a check. Wild. Then just a few years later in 1853, America came back and bought another strip of land from Mexico for $10 million, called the Gadsden Purchase. At this point, Mexico was probably like, "Bro, just stop knocking on our door." Meanwhile, up north, America and Britain had been sharing the Oregon Territory, but couldn't agree on who owned what. They finally sat down, drew a line across the map, and shook hands. Britain got everything above the line, which became Canada. America got everything below: Oregon, Washington, Idaho. Clean split. And just like that, America stretched from the Atlantic Ocean all the way to the Pacific, coast to coast, sea to shining sea. The dream was complete. But wait, it gets even better. Almost immediately after America got California, some dude found gold. Like actual gold, just sitting in the ground. Word spread like wildfire, and suddenly thousands of people from all over the world were racing to California. The gold rush of 1848 was on, and America was booming. Up in Oregon, there was free farmland. The economy was thriving. The country was expanding. Everything looked amazing from the outside. But underneath all that success, there was a massive crack forming right down the middle of the country. Half the nation thought slavery was evil and needed to be abolished. The other half said their entire economy depended on it. And both sides were getting louder, angrier, and more desperate by the day. When Abraham Lincoln was elected president in 1860, the South decided they were done talking. They picked up their ball and left the game entirely. And what came next was the bloodiest war ever fought on American soil. Okay, so here's where things get really heavy. America had been arguing about slavery for decades. It was like a ticking time bomb that everybody kept kicking down the road, hoping someone else would deal with it. Well, nobody dealt with it. And in 1860, that bomb finally went off. When Abraham Lincoln won the presidential election, the southern states panicked. They believed Lincoln was going to abolish slavery and destroy their whole way of life. So one by one, southern states started dropping out of the United States like they were quitting a group chat. They formed their own separate country called the Confederate States of America. And just like that, America was split in two. The Civil War started in 1861, and it was brutal. This wasn't America fighting some faraway enemy. This was neighbors fighting neighbors, brothers fighting brothers, families torn completely apart. It became the deadliest war in all of American history. Over 620,000 soldiers died. That's more American deaths than World War I and World War II combined. The North had more people, more factories, more railroads, and more resources. The South had passionate fighters and some seriously talented generals. For a while it looked like it could go either way. But in 1863, Lincoln dropped one of the most important documents in American history, the Emancipation Proclamation. It declared that all enslaved people in Confederate states were free. It changed the whole meaning of the war. Now the North wasn't just fighting to save the Union. They were fighting to end slavery forever. By 1865, the South was exhausted and out of options. The Confederacy collapsed, the Union was saved, and slavery was officially abolished across the entire country with the 13th Amendment. But the victory came with heartbreak. Just days after the war ended, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated at Ford's Theater, shot by John Wilkes Booth while watching a play. The man who held the nation together through its darkest chapter never got to see the peace he'd fought for. One of the most gut-punch moments in all of American history. The country was reunited but completely shattered. Cities were burned, families were broken, and millions of newly freed Black Americans had their freedom on paper but had nothing else. No land, no money, no support. America had a lot of rebuilding to do. But while all that rebuilding was happening down south, up north, a wild backroom deal was going down that was about to hand America the biggest chunk of frozen land you've ever seen. And they got it for basically nothing. Alright, so America just survived the Civil War. The country is healing up, and you'd think they'd take a breather, right? Nope. America was out here making moves like a player on a hot streak. First up, Alaska. Russia owned it, and honestly didn't know what to do with it. It was cold, far away, and expensive to maintain. So Russia basically walked up to America and said, "Yo, you want this?" The American Secretary of State William Seward said absolutely yes. He negotiated the whole deal, $7.2 million for over 586,000 square miles of land. That's roughly 2 cents per acre. Most Americans at the time thought it was the dumbest purchase ever made. They called it Seward's folly, basically meaning Seward's big mistake. Newspapers were roasting him daily. Why did we just buy a giant freezer? Yeah, well, turns out that freezer was sitting on billions of dollars worth of oil, gold, and natural resources. Who's laughing now? Then America set its sights on Hawaii. A group of American businessmen had basically taken over the Hawaiian Islands and were asking the U.S. government to annex them. The sitting president at the time said absolutely not. America should not be out here bullying small nations and taking their land. But others pushed back hard. They argued that if America didn't claim Hawaii, then Germany or Japan would. And having a foreign military power that close to American shores? That's a massive security threat. This debate was bigger than just Hawaii. It was really asking, what kind of country is America going to be? A nation that minds its own business? Or a nation that plays the global power game? America was still chewing on that question when a crisis exploded in Cuba. Cuba was fighting for independence from Spain. Almost every Spanish colony in the Americas had already broken free, but Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines were still under Spanish control. Americans were following the story in the newspapers, and most people were cheering for the Cuban revolutionaries. Then in 1898, an American warship called the USS Maine mysteriously blew up in Havana Harbor. Nobody knew exactly why, but American newspapers ran with it. Spain blew up our ship. The country went absolutely crazy. The pressure to go to war was through the roof. America told Spain, leave Cuba now, or else. Spain said no, and declared war on the United States. Big mistake. Huge. America didn't just fight Spain and Cuba. They took Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines in a matter of months. The Spanish Empire that Christopher Columbus had built over 400 years? Gone. Done. Finished. Just like that. And while all that was popping off, America also quietly annexed Hawaii. Because of course they did. America was no longer just a country. It was becoming an empire. But the biggest power moves? They hadn't even happened yet. Okay, we are in the home stretch and things are about to go from impressive to absolutely legendary. After the Spanish-American War, President McKinley got assassinated. Yeah, America was really going through it with presidents getting shot. And a young, wildly energetic dude named Theodore Roosevelt stepped up and became president. And Teddy Roosevelt was not coming to play. First thing he did, started beefing with Colombia. America wanted to build a canal through Panama, which was Colombian territory at the time, to connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Colombia said yes, took the money, then changed their mind. Roosevelt was furious. So you know what he did? He helped Panama break away from Colombia and become its own country. Panama said thanks, and immediately gave America permission to build the canal. Was it shady? Absolutely. Did it work? 100%. The Panama Canal was completed in 1914, and it was a game changer. The U.S. Navy could now move between 2 oceans in days instead of sailing all the way around South America. America's military power just leveled up in a massive way. But Roosevelt wasn't done. He built up the second largest navy in the entire world and used it to throw America's weight around in global politics. He basically invented the concept of speak softly and carry a big stick. Translation? Be cool, be calm, but make sure everybody knows you can absolutely wreck them if they try something. Think about how far America had come in just over 400 years. from a continent nobody wanted to the most powerful nation on Earth, from 13 struggling colonies on the East Coast to a country stretching from sea to sea with territories in the Pacific and Caribbean, from a broke new government that was literally falling apart to a global military and economic superpower. And all of this happened by 1914, right as World War I was just getting started, which means America's wildest chapters were still ahead. The Roaring '20s, the Great Depression, World War II, the Cold War, the space race, Vietnam, civil rights, 9/11, all of it still to come. America's story is messy, complicated, sometimes ugly, and absolutely fascinating. And we are just getting started covering it. Don't get left behind. Subscribe now, and I'll see you in the next one.